Hello, I hope you're doing great. So today we are going to talk a little bit about Visual Studio 22 and Maui, specifically Maui Blazor. Okay, so today is November the 9th, and yesterday Visual Studio 22 was officially released. Now, unfortunately, in the Visual Studio 22 GA, or the general availability, the official release, Maui was not included because they delayed, or they had to delay the um, release for Maui Blazor. They had to delay the release for Maui. However, you can still develop in Maui. The official release of Visual Studio does not have a template for Maui. Actually, they remove it. And however, there is a Visual Studio preview. So currently we have two versions of Visual Studio 22. The official release, which is the Visual Studio 17.0, and then is the Visual Studio preview, which is the 17.1. The Visual Studio 17.1 does have a Visual Studio template for Maui Blazor. This template is a basic single project. Um, if you have already worked with Blazor Maui in the past, Maui Blazor, I'm sorry, in the past, or you will have seen that one of the old ways in which we do it, and in which they did it in the first previews of .NET 6 and Maui, um, they had two projects, one for the mobile platforms and the other project for the Windows UI, which was basically a project having linked files to most of the files in the um, mobile project. Now everything is in a single project. So if you are looking at my code, here we have the visual, um, the Fairplay Tooth branch for Maui Blazor. And you can see that in here, I have a Maui Blazor project. This is still a default project. But how it works, so if we go to edit project file, you will see that this project actually has something named target frameworks. And in the target frameworks, it has all of the frameworks that it's going to be supporting, right? So in this case, we have the Net 6 Android, Net 6 iOS, Net 6 Mac Catalyst, and here we have an additional targets framework. It says condition if the build platform is Windows and the build runtime is full, then add the Net 6.0 Windows 10 09041, right? This is the output is an executable, right? We have the root namespace, we have the use Maui element, and we set it to true. It's configured to be a single project. Enable CCS items, right? And you will see that in here we have things like supported OS platform version, right? So we say things like supported OS platform version condition. If it is equals to Net 6 iOS, we support the 14.2. If it is Net 6.0 Mac Catalyst 14.0, and the same for the other. Now, target platform minimum version. If it's Windows, the minimum version for Windows is going to be this one, right? Then we have the packages, and you see that there are item groups or conditionally based item groups, right? So this one will be effective when the target frameworks contain Windows. So in this case, we will add the package reference for this Windows SDKs. If the target framework contains Windows, the output type is going to be a Win executable, right? And the runtime identifier is going to be a Win64. Here we remove, yeah, remove that. Here we have the shared packages, right? The packages that we are going to require for all of the platforms, right? Here we have the project references, right? And here we have the scripts that we have added to the solution. Okay, now this version, basically what it does, it has a class or file name Maui program. This Maui program, it has this create Maui app public static method, right? And see, we'll see how it works in a second. So you see that it's being referenced from multiple places. So you see that when I did find references, it basically gave me a couple of uh, results. So it is being invoked from this file main application.cs. This main application.cs it's defined in a folder named in the Android folder under the platforms folder. In the Maui applications, you basically have a platforms folder and you have a subfolder for each of the platforms. One for Android, one for iOS, one for Mac Catalyst, and one for Windows. So basically, this one prepares the Android application, right, and overrides the create Maui app. Check this. This is a Maui application, right? Basically, it is a main application, I'm sorry, inheriting from Maui application. And what it does, it has the override of create Maui app and basically invokes the Maui program.create Maui app, which is the user-based definition of the application creation, right? Then we go to this one, and this one is basically the same except that it is for the app delegate in the iOS subfolder. This one is pretty much the same except that it is in the app delegate for the Mac Catalyst subfolder, and this is the one for the Windows version or subfolder, right? Then in our user-defined, well, it's not really user-defined. This actually comes with a template, but the user can extend it or modify it. So basically, what you do is there is a Maui app class when you can create a builder. Remember that the builder is basically a lot of configuration that allows you to build your application. Like you register the services, you tell it where to get the configuration from, and a lot of things. So it has things like register Blazor UI Maui web view, right? So it registers the web view. We have the use Maui app to indicate which is the host of the or the class that represents the Maui app. You see that here we have the app.xaml, and this is basically the app, right? And here you will see that we specify which is going to be the main page. Main page is going to be the main page. Main page is going to be this SAML, right? And this main page is the one that has the Blazor web view. Remember that when you work with Maui Blazor, basically you have a SAML application, or it's actually a Win UI application with SAML pages, and the Blazor application basically runs inside a defined or predefined web view. So here we have the web view and we tell it which is going to be the main. Main is going to be this one, and here is where our Blazor router starts and our application starts, and all of the application or the Blazor application is going to be rendered and working inside this main razor or this router definition. If we go back to the Maui program, we have other things like, of course, it configures the default fonts. Now, this is specific for Fairplay 2 because we need to register localizers and all of things that we are implementing because the application is already big, right? Now, if you are going to use secrets, basically, if you need configuration to be executed or read from somewhere in your Maui Blazor application, one of the things that you can do is you can create an app settings.json, right? And then you can set it to embedded resource. And when you compile and set it to copy always or copy anywhere, and when you build, you will have access to that as a stream. You will use the assembly dot get manifest resource string, and you will pass the full qualified name of that file, which will basically be composed of the assembly name, which will be in this case fairplay2.mauiblazor dot the file name. In this case, I am adding the development version because I've been testing. And then this will give you a stream, and you can add builder configuration dot add JSON stream. And you pass the stream. The assembly, you actually get it from this introspection extension.getTypeInfo. You get the type of the Maui program, and then you get the assembly. This is to avoid hard coding. Okay. Then you continue adding a lot of other services, right? In this case, to make it simple, I just created a variable, assigned the services to that, and services.add singleton, add localization, right? Add the scope for the localization message handler, add options, add authorization core, then add the scope to convert the out or to use this custom out state provider when an authentication state provider is requested. This is the default singleton or service that is added in the default template, right? In this case, I'm adding some DHCP clients. Now, something really important when you are working with Maui Blazor applications, if you are going to run them in an Android emulator, for example, um, if you request localhost, that will not work. You actually need to use something like a tunnel. So you can use something like ngrok, right? And when you download it, you will create or use a command like this, ngrok.exe. Then you set your API URL, your local URL, and then the host setter, you will actually set it to the same except from the protocol and the schema. You will basically just put the host and the port, and then when you configure your HTTP client, you will set the base address to the one that you had configured. Of course, this is hard-coded because this is currently in a development stage, but this should actually be retrieved either from configuration or from some place that um, works for both your local scenario and when you have already deployed your application. Okay, then we continue adding the services. This is just normal code. Now, something really important is that when you are developing Maui Blazor applications, one of the things that you have to consider is that you need to be aware and to always consider the fact that your application is going to be run on multiple platforms, right? Especially if you have already developed your application in Blazor WebAssembly or Blazor Server. So basically, you need to take advantage of a couple of things. Dependency injection, right? Separating your projects as much as possible so they are as independent as possible from the platform you are running in, right? Also, so that you can reutilize that code in the other platforms initial configuration, right? Because you still need to configure your services in each of the platforms, right? So you will see that, for example, in here, I added these services.add cross-platform services, and I actually passed the configuration coming from the builder. If I go to this is basically a static class with a static method, right? It's an extension method. And basically what I am doing is I am using this to register these services that I am using in all of the applications, on the client application and on the Maui Blazor application in this case. Actually, I believe this is also being used in the test project. Let's see. Well, it seems it's not being used in the test project, but I actually may need to add it in the test project. I need to verify. Maybe not. I haven't used that. So then we add the Blazor web view, right? Add login. Okay. One error that I had found when I run this the first time is that if I wanted to use the uh, error boundary in my application, in my Maui Blazor application, I was always getting an error that there was no register provided for the iError boundary logger. So basically what I did is I just add the scope and implemented a custom boundary logger that currently does not do anything. I just wanted to get rid of the error temporarily, right? Then a couple of things that you will need to do, at least in the case of Fairplay 2. You build the host and then you configure the localizers. Um, this is kind of a strategy that we did because at least in Blazor 5, and I believe .NET 6 still has the same issue. Um, Blazor did not easily support localization of models of classes data notations, right? For example, the data notations like required, string length, um, email, all of those data notations that are usually used to display messages or validation, client-side validation messages to your users. So basically what we did in here is we create a method that will add some static properties, and the models actually are using not the direct message, but they are using the resource-based way of reading the messages. And then we set the default culture and we return the host. Now the first page that your Blazor application is going to be executing, at least your Blazor portion, is going to be the index, right? Of course, it will execute the main layout, right? The code that it's in there, this is the one that will always be running. And here you will have like the body in here, right? So when you go to your index page, you will have a page in here, and then you can start writing your code in there easily. Now, in this case, basically we already have some small demo to run the um, Fairplay 2 client application, which is just basically load the videos, and not all of the services are registered. Now, if you want to test that, one of the things that you need to do is you go to your API, you run the API with Control F5, and then you go to your Maui Blazor application, verify that at least in the current stage, you have set the correct um, URL, and then you go in here and you decide where you want to run it. So I am going to run it in Windows. So Windows machine. I'll run this and we'll see how it goes. Says main activity could not be found. Actually, one of the things that I have noticed with these versions is that sometimes you see errors that are actually not real errors. And I believe that I have the impression it is that the Maui Blazor applications are using a lot of C# source generators behind the scenes. So I think not everything is really compiled before you try to use it. Type on namespace main activity. So I'm having errors in here. Initialize component does not exist. Huh, that's interesting. Okay, I close my Visual Studio. I'll open it again and we'll see if the error gets fixed. So those are kind of the things that are still a little bit tricky when you work with Maui Blazor, since it's still in preview, right? A lot of people, including me, are actually waiting for this to be in uh, officially released and fully working without having to do a lot of workarounds. But yeah, it's just, while even if it is still in a preview stage, it actually works pretty well. But yeah, once and then you actually get some errors that you have no idea why. No, I want that for Windows. Oh, that's why. Um, if Android and if this is something that I added to test um, my authentication using when I was using when I was trying to run the application in the emulator, but the authentication is not fully working in the Android emulator. Okay, so the Maui application run, but I didn't run the server first. So I'll run the server and then I'll run the Maui Blazor application once the server is already has already finished loading. And okay, so let's see, my server hasn't really finished loading. Okay, it seems it already finished. And now it already loaded the um, the data. And you can see that we can click in there and we'll see the insights on the video, right? So it's already working in the Maui Blazor application, at least this one for the mobile platform, for the Windows platform. Now, if I go to the Android emulator, let's see if it is working. I run it earlier and it was actually working. I was able to see the videos. I was not able to authenticate though, because of an issue with redirection. Unfortunately, for some reason, it wasn't redirecting back to the application. So this is deploying the application. We see it's actually copying the files. And once that finishes, if it finishes successfully, we should be able to see the application running inside the Android emulator. Now, after we put this, I am going to finish the stream because the .NET Conf it's already going to start, and neither you nor me want to miss that. .NET Conf should be really, really good. There are a lot of cool stuff that are coming actually for Blazor 2. .NET 6 it has a lot of cool new features, and I heard there is going to be like an interesting presentation about um, seamless integration of Blazor with Power BI. So that's something I actually want to see for the Fairplay 2 reports. Okay, so this is not loading, and this is what I was telling you. So you need to go to where you have the ngrok install, right? And you need to run the command, right? That's actually one of the reasons I let it in there. And now you will copy this address, and that is the address that you should use for running your version in the Android emulator. That's basically a tunnel that will allow you to redirect your requests to your local host, or to your local host, I would say. So let's see, it's about to run the application, right? It should start it in a second. And now if I did everything successfully, we should be able to see the data. Okay, it's about to run the application. Well, we already started the application. Just loading. It's trying to do the requests. And let's see how it goes. It seems it may. Yeah, it should actually work. There may be an error in here, or maybe um, yeah, it was just taking a long time to retrieve that. But you see, now we have our data in here, the Fairplay 2 with the components. That's actually one of the reasons why it is really, really important that when you create Maui Blazor applications, you separate or split your components as much as possible. As you can see, most of the components in Fairplay 2 are actually defined, at least the reusable components, are actually defined in a separate project because we were already planning and we had already done some tests with the previous versions of Maui Blazor, right? So one of the things that we realized is that we have to take advantage of the Blazor um, nature of being component based, right? So most of the UI is actually defined in components, so you can reutilize it in the other platforms. So as you can see, the interface, the UI is actually very similar in the Fairplay website, in the mobile version, and now in the Maui Blazor, which is supposed to eventually become the native version that we are going to publish in the official stores so you can use the application in there. So thank you very much for paying attention. Remember to use the Buy Me a Coffee. See you next time, and let's go and see the .NET and watch the .NET Conf. Have a great day.